Imagine if your loved one, with whom you have spent years, turns out backstabbing you, and ripping you off. Cooking your limbs and serving your children. If you're already terrified with this statement, then coming up next will surely make you think twice. Hello and welcome to Crime Time Reports, where we present true crime stories, solved, unsolved and mysterious cases. And today we are going to discuss the twisted case of Katherine Knight. Before uncovering, it's important to know the early life of Katherine. Please listen carefully as you have to decide who is the real responsible. Katherine's mother, Barbara Roughan, had an affair with Ken Knight, and they moved to Moree to escape the backlash from the local community. Ken Knight was a violent alcoholic who raped her mother up to 10 times a day. Katherine was one of the twin daughters, and she had 4 half-siblings from her mother's previous marriage. When Katherine complained to her mother that one of her partners wanted her to take part in a sex act she did not want to perform, Barbara told her to put up with it and stop complaining. Katherine claimed she was frequently sexually assaulted by several members of her family, though not by her father, which continued until she was aged 11. Although there are doubts about the details, psychiatrists accept her claims and the events have been largely confirmed by other members of the family. During her time at Muswellbrook High School, Katherine Knight became a social outcast and was known to bully smaller students. She was remembered for assaulting at least one boy with a weapon and was once injured by a teacher who acted in self-defense. Despite this, Knight was a model student when she was not in a fit of anger and was frequently recognized for her good behavior. At the age of 15, Knight left school without being able to read or write and began working as a cutter in a clothing factory. A year later, she quit her job to pursue her dream job of cutting up offal at a local abattoir. There, she quickly rose through the ranks to become a boner, receiving her own set of butcher's knives. At home, she kept the knives over her bed, claiming they were always handy in case of need. Katherine Knight met David Kellett in 1973 when they both worked at the Aberdeen meatworks. They began dating and eventually moved in together. In 1974, Katherine became pregnant and the couple married on March 15 of that year. They had a daughter together, but the relationship was tumultuous, and they separated after a few years. However, they continued to have an on-again, off-again relationship over the years and had another child together in 1980. Although they separated later on. John Charles Thomas Price was already a father of 3 children when he started an affair with Katherine Knight. Despite Knight's violent reputation, Price allowed her to move into his house in 1995, as his 2 older children lived with him and his youngest daughter with his ex-wife. Although at first, their relationship was pleasant, with Price making a lot of money working in the local mines, and his children liking Knight, they started to have violent arguments. In 1998, Knight demanded that Price marry her, but he refused. As a result, she videotaped items that she claimed Price had stolen from work and sent the tape to his boss. Price was fired from his job, and he kicked Knight out of the house. However, they rekindled their relationship a few months later, although Price refused to let her move back in with him. Their fighting became more frequent, and Price's friends started distancing themselves from him while they were together. In February 2000, Price was subject to a series of assaults by Knight, which culminated in her stabbing him in the chest. He informed his co-workers that if he did not show up for work the next day, it would be because Knight had killed him. Despite their protests, Price returned home as he feared that Knight would harm his children if he did not. When he arrived home, Knight had sent the children away for a sleepover. That evening, he spent time with his neighbors before going to bed at 11 p.m. Knight had bought new black lingerie and had videotaped all her children while making comments that have been interpreted as a crude will. Later that night, she arrived at Price's house, showered, woke him up and had sex with him. Price fell asleep after the encounter. The next morning at 6 a.m., a neighbor noticed that Price's car was still in the driveway and informed his employer. Police were alerted when they found blood on the front door after attempting to wake Price by knocking on his bedroom window. Breaking down the back door, they found Price's body and Knight comatose from taking a large number of pills. Knight had stabbed Price with a butcher's knife while he was sleeping. Evidence showed that Price had attempted to turn on the lights and escape, but Knight chased him through the house. He managed to open the front door and get outside. but he either stumbled back inside or was dragged back into the hallway, where he died after bleeding out. After Price's death, Knight skinned him and hung his skin from a meat hook on the architrave of the door to the lounge room. She decapitated Price and cooked parts of his body, serving the meat with vegetables at the dinner table in 2 settings. The notes beside each plate had the name of one of Price's children on them, indicating that Knight planned to serve his body parts to his children. A third meal was thrown on the back lawn for unknown reasons. Knight claimed that she had no memory of the crime. Price's head was found in a pot with vegetables, which was still warm, suggesting that the cooking had taken place in the early morning. Knight later arranged Price's body with his left arm draped over an empty 1.25-liter soft drink bottle and the legs crossed. This was seen as an act of defilement, demonstrating Knight's contempt for Price. A handwritten note, covered in blood and small pieces of flesh, was left on top of a photograph of Price. Justice O'Keefe, on the 8th of November, deemed the nature of Knight's crime and her lack of remorse deserving of a severe punishment. As a result, he handed down a life sentence with no possibility of parole and instructed that her records be marked, never to be released, marking the first time this had been imposed on a woman in Australia's history. In June 2006, Knight attempted to appeal the life sentence, arguing that the penalty was too harsh for the killing. However, in September of the same year, Justices Peter McClellan, Michael Adams, and Megan Latham dismissed her appeal in the New South Wales Court of Criminal Appeal. In his judgment, Justice McClellan referred to the crime as an appalling crime, almost beyond contemplation in a civilized society. If you love to hear solved, unsolved and mysterious cases, do subscribe to Crime Time Reports and comment down what do you think about this event and how it would have been prevented.